Welcome to the Piston Fanatic. I'm your host, Dave Dalton, and I'm excited to share my passion and perspective of our Detroit Pistons as we go on this fantastic voyage together. I've been a diehard Piston fan since the days of Dave Bing and Bob Lanier. I've also been a varsity basketball coach of a very successful program in northern Michigan. Currently, my daughter and I are coaching one of the best AAU teams in the country. Well, 7 losses in a row, Piston fans. It's pretty hard to swallow with all the optimism we had and excitement for this upcoming season. And then we get, Cade Cunningham getting injured. That's such a big blow. Finding out that there's even a possibility that he might be out for the entire season if he has to have surgery. But we just, it's just life in basketball. You just have to go with it and do the best that you can. And it has provided Killian Hayes and Jaden Ivey and other players more opportunities. It's been hard to see Sadiq. He got injured. He sprained his ankle, and then he tried his hardest to come back. 'Cause I know he has a games played streak that I don't think he's missed a game in his career, his 3-year career. So he was trying to come back, but it's not worth it. If you have a bad ankle and you try to keep on playing on it, you just risk hurting it over and over again. Isaiah Stewart with his toe could be 2 to 3 weeks, unfortunately, and he was just rolling. We were optimistic about his 3-point shot after the end of last year and in the summer league, and I just thought he was going to be shooting it pretty well. And then he started out the season, he shot, I think, in the 20s, but in the last 10 games before he got injured, he was shooting 40% on threes. So that's what we need, because we need to be able to play the two bigs together, and the only way that can happen is if Isaiah Stewart can spread the floor and shoot the three. And so hopefully he'll come back strong and we'll be able to see that two big lineup again. I'd really like to see Jalen Duren start alongside him instead of Marvin Bagley, but we'll see what happens with Coach Casey. I was impressed with Coach Casey when he did go to the two big lineup, that it was a tough decision. He had Sadiq not start, and Sadiq's been a starter for his whole career pretty much, and so I know that was a hard decision, but I admire the coach that it's hard to be a coach, and you have things in the locker room, and you have different pecking order, and Sadiq is so well respected because of his determination, his work ethic, and he's worked so hard to try to get better and better. But I thought Coach Casey made the right decision, and then what happens then? Isaiah Stewart gets injured, and so that kind of put a kibosh to that. And so I was excited. Burks came back and he's played, I think, really well and gave our bench just a big shot in the arm and made us so much better. And I was so excited to see what happened when we got our full lineup, all of our players playing at the same time. And I thought it was going to be a hard thing for Coach Casey to try to get minutes for all of them. I even had a episode started in the works to disperse the minutes, how I felt that like they should disperse the minutes to go around for the team, and it was going to be challenging. But again, we got 60% of our starters are injured, and so it's kind of tough when you're already have been battling injuries and you have one of the youngest teams in the NBA. So once again, I am not for tanking, but I can say that looks like it's going to be really hard for us ever to get close to the playoffs. So I just keep on playing the young players. I've been pleased with the way Coach Casey's done it. I would probably mix the rotations up in different ways. I would have, and played two bigs together and made sure I had staggered some starters minutes so that we always had Cade or Ivy on the floor, and Bogey and Sadiq, one of the two of them on the floor at all times. And there are things like that I thought that could have been done better. But we're just got to keep on trying to get the young players minutes. And if we end up with, a high draft pick, if we end up in the bottom 3, so be it. Injuries it's just really tough when we had the third toughest schedule to start the season and 4 back-to-backs in the first 14 games, and then all the injuries even before the season started. Bagley and Burks couldn't play, and Noel, and then we get these 3 injuries. And so it's just really devastating to a team that's just trying to come together. Coach Casey's trying to learn up which lineups play together, and he's really not been able to do that because we've never come close to having our full group of players together. So, injuries are a big part. It's sort of thing about the top 10 scorers in the NBA. All guys, I think, are averaging like 30 points a game. There's a lot of scoring in the NBA this year, more than ever before. There's more 30-point scorers at this time than usual. But out of the top 10 scorers through 15 games, only 2 of those players have played in every game. So that's, again, back, Michael Jordan, he played 80 to 82 games almost every year. LeBron James, when he was younger, he played 80 to 82 games. And then things started changing, even Coach Pop would, for the Spurs, they would sit 3 starters just for rest. And so it's a new NBA. Players are, they really take extra precaution. If a player's injury, they really err way more on the side of caution from what, I don't want to sound like an old school fogey that, just back in our day we were tougher, but the truth is they did play players more. Even I think a lot of players played through injury or returned from injury way faster than they do today. So anyway, we have seen some improvement. Jaden Ivey has really come on, and he's still inconsistent. The difference between being good and great, I always say, is consistency. And so we hope that he um, becomes more consistent. And he has been over the last 5 games. I think that's probably when since Cade's been starting, not been able to play since Cade was injured, he's been averaging 21 points a game, over 21 points a game in the last 5 games. For the season, he's averaging close to 17 and almost 5 assists and 4 rebounds, and that's outstanding. His 3-point shot is really inconsistent, and I was very concerned about that. That was one of my big concerns when we drafted him. I wasn't sold on his form. He was able to make shots. He has a real nice arc on his shot, but he stops his follow through. Instead of extending and following through and reaching high and holding it, he just kind of jabs it sometimes. And in my experience as a coach and a shooting coach for a long time, that usually doesn't promote consistency. So we'll see. He in 3 games before the game with the Kings, he was 3 for 21, and he's averaging 7 shots a game, and he's not making any. He's making 1 a game, and that's not going to win you many games, and that's not really acceptable. But against Sacramento, he was 4 for 4 on threes, knocked down a couple step backs, 2 or 3 step backs out of those, and his shot looked pretty good, but it's still, we'll see what happens with him. But he still is electric on the court. He still is passing the ball. He finds guys. He can get to the rim. And again, a huge asset is he is drawing fouls. And so he gets those extra points on the free throw line. Those are very valuable. So the other one says Killian started the last 7 games shooting 42% on threes, which is mind-boggling because prior to that, he was shooting 19%. And though 7 games is still small sample size, remains to be seen, but it's still very promising. Just 2 weeks ago, he seemed like he was ready to be out of the league. A lot of fans thought that, or send him back to the G League or whatever. But Coach Casey stayed with him. He's still only shooting 41% from the floor overall, which is, he's shooting worse from 2s than he is from 3, but he still doesn't finish around the rim that well. He has that nice little pull-up jumper. I think that has potential to be consistent in the mid-range, but we'll just have to see what happens. I think I told you that I was excited about Alec Burks playing with us, and he is everything that I hoped, he would be. I think he has to be more consistent also, but he has showed such signs, and he's a baller's baller. I said that in the prior thing, and he's a hooper's hooper. He has a great bag of tricks, and he scored a lot of points for us, and he missed training camp, and he missed preseason, and he missed all the first games, and he's jumped right into the mix and performed quite well. So he's averaging like 15 points a game, and he's not playing many minutes. That's on like 20 some minutes, and he's shooting 40% on threes. He's had some good games and some bad games, but I think that'll be better. He's been a consistent near 40% shooter throughout his career. I know the one game he was playing, and I think Coach Casey wanted to leave him out there at the end of the game, but he was exhausted, so he's not in shape yet. He even admitted that, not in good enough shape. So we'll see what happens there. Sadiq still is a concern. Again, he has so much grit and he has so much passion. He works so hard. It is hard to explain when a guy works on his game. As you know, he's Coach Casey says that he's one of the hardest workers in the whole league. And here he is. His 3-point percentage has gone down every year. This is his third year, and he has really been bad. In the last, he's shooting 29% on threes, and he passes up open threes. Even he doesn't have confidence in it for whatever reason. His game at the rim has gotten better, and so that is a positive. But he's still, the last 5 games, he's only averaged 9 points a game, shot 31% from the floor overall, and only 20% on threes. So he was struggling, and hard to know what, the psychology part of basketball is huge. And again, last year he played so much better when he knew he was going to be relied on to score, and he did a lot better when he got more shots. Like um, when the Pistons were shorthanded, he had 51 that one game, and when other players got injured, and he just all of a sudden got a lot more shots, he ended up shooting a lot better percentage. And then when he just didn't play as well when um, Jeremy Grant was playing. He played better when Jeremy Grant didn't play, and I think a lot of it's just his confidence. And so we'll see. We hopefully maybe this injury will be a blessing. Maybe he will. Sometimes players, if they get some time off, they just get refreshed mentally and physically, and we'll hope that happens with him. The guy that I'm just so excited for is Jalen Duren, and he just had his 19th birthday the other day, and he has been phenomenal. And I will tell you that I've said it on previous podcasts. Play the guy more. I think they should start him and play him 25 to 30 minutes every night. And obviously he's going to get in foul trouble, and so he's not going to be able to stay on the floor that long some nights. But play him, man. When he's gotten more playing time is when our other post players have got injured, so Coach Casey's been forced to play him. But when he's averaging like 21 minutes a game, that's not enough. And so he's averaged 8.6 rebounds a game over the last 5 games. Most of you probably have heard this stat. He is number 1 in the NBA in contested rebound percentage. So what that means is the rebounds when he's in traffic, when the guys are all around him and there's 2 guys right next to him and he's battling for the rebound, he's coming away with those balls a higher percentage. Anthony Davis is number 2, Steven Adams is number 3, Brook Lopez is number 4. That's all these big guys and experienced NBA veterans that have been really great, and he's leading all of them in those. And a lot of it is he goes after those offensive rebounds. That has been a huge. That is so huge when you get an offensive rebound. That means you don't have to get a defensive stop. And so the other big advantage is when he gets a lot of those offensive rebounds, he's going right back up and he's hammering and he's dunking the ball right through the basket, and it's 2 easy points for us. So I just hope that he keeps on getting a chance. I remember I loved Coach Chuck Daly, and he was probably the best coach in Piston history. He was the best coach in Piston history, and he managed his team so well, and he had to worry about the locker room and how different players felt and stuff. And so, but I just was so convinced that Dennis Rodman, he was such a great defender, and he was just an amazing rebounder. And I just, why is he was playing like 19 minutes a game, and I'm thinking, play him more minutes, play him more minutes. Finally, so we had Adrian Dantley, who was a remarkable player. He wasn't that tall. He was only like 6'4", but he could take the ball in. It seemed like he was going in slow motion. He would go to the line like 15 times a game. He would draw fouls, and he shot over 90% on free throws. And the Pistons decided that he wasn't a great fit for the team. Also, they decided they knew they had Rodman and John Sally and stuff, and so they knew that he would never be satisfied if they cut his minutes. So they traded him, got Mark Aguirre, who was also an all-star, and they started him, and he was a really great player, but he at some point realized that we were better off with Rodman, and so Mark Aguirre told Coach Daly to let Dennis Rodman start. And so that's kind of when the Pistons, when the Bad Boys became champions, when all that happened. And I just think that Duren has got a lot of Dennis Rodman. I mean, he's a bigger, stronger guy, and Rodman was a quicker and a really great perimeter defender. And but Rodman didn't block as many shots, I don't think, as Duren did. But I just see a lot of the same things. And so hopefully that'll happen for him, and he'll get to play more minutes. And again, we're trying to develop players, and we're see what happens. So a couple of things that I've noticed about Bol has been playing so well. He's been averaging like 20 points a game, 2 blocks, and shooting 60%. He's making threes, and I just give Troy Weaver credit. It's disappointing that he didn't that we didn't get him, because the doctors determined that he wasn't healthy, that there was something in the physical that he failed when he came to the Pistons when we traded for him at first. And now he's just unbelievable. He's starting for Orlando, and he's playing at a really high level. And um, we had him. He was on our team. We had the trade for Rodney McGruder, and he just ends up Troy. Again, that was a great move by Troy. My son-in-law is a fantastic at fantasy football, and he makes all these great moves all the time on fantasy football, picking these guys up off waivers who are good players. A lot of them don't even get to play. A lot he doesn't need it because his team's good enough, so he doesn't even need to them. But they're still genius moves. And just I think that was a genius move by Troy Weaver. In hindsight, looking at what Bol's doing, it didn't work out because he failed the physical. But that's what the kind of moves that Troy Weaver does, and he's going to probably continue doing those moves with us. It happened, with Kevin Knox, and Kevin Knox hasn't always looked that great for us, but he knew that he was a high draft pick, that he had a lot of talent coming into the NBA. And so last night against Sacramento, he had a great game, and maybe he'll continue to. Again, I don't know where always, especially if we get all of our players back, it's really going to be hard for to disperse the minutes for everybody. So we'll see what happens. We have some big decisions to make. We have a lot of money. We're going to have at least $48 million, which we could sign a max player if we wanted to next year. But the reality is there aren't that many great players that are eligible for free agency, especially that are kind of on our timeline. So we need a younger guy. We hopefully we would get, and Kyle Kuzma is he's really good. He's 27 though, which is a little bit older than we want, but he's averaging like 23 points a game and 9 rebounds. He had 27 and 10 rebounds last night, and they're winning some games. So he might end up re-signing with the Wizards, but he will be a free agent. But other than that, there aren't. What we really need is a forward, and we need a forward that can defend and score, create his own shot, and preferably shoot a 3. Well, everybody in the NBA wants those guys, and there aren't that many left. Interesting to hear, there was from Shams or somebody, I heard a report that the Pistons and the Lakers are investigating and looking into Miles Bridges. And based on the reports that most of us have heard, what he did was unexcusable and not necessarily the kind of person that you would want on your team, to think that they would do such a horrific thing. But we'll see. I doubt we will get him, but he is, he had a breakout year last year. He's 6'6", and he averaged 20 a game and almost 4 assists and 7 rebounds, and shot about almost 50%, 33% on threes, which isn't great, but he still, I wouldn't do it unless he checked out and I found out that was just such a, not a typical thing that he would do, that something just happened and he just snapped. But I still would doubt. Troy Weaver always says that he drafts the person first and the player second. So based on that, if there are some question marks about what type of person he is, I doubt that they would bring him in. But at least it was reported, and Troy is good at this too, that Troy doesn't leave any stone unturned. So like when he drafted Cade, a lot of people gave a hard time. Why aren't you just going to draft Cade? He investigated and looked at all of his options, and that's something I admire about him. That whether he does everything exactly right, he does look at all of his options to see what happens. So we still can have a good opportunity to get one of those forwards. The chances are there's going to be a lot of good forwards that are going to be in the top of the draft next year in this next spring, and so there's a good chance we'll get a real athletic forward that can really play, that can give us some size and some length, but also some better defense, because we do need whoever we sign, either through trading for or signing, we need to get somebody that can defend. And I know I love Bogey and I love Burks, but the reality is if we get the right offer, I'm not going to give them away. I'm not going to trade them for a second round pick, but otherwise I'll just keep them. And we have them both signed for next year, and I think that they have a lot to offer our team and can help us win. But if we can get something that's going to make us better and fit our timeline in the future, I think that we would be interested in trading them. And there's a lot of teams out there that are, even the Warriors are, kind of in limbo. They're only about 500 right now. The NBA is just crazy this year. It's topsy-turvy. A lot of the teams that people predicted before the season were going to be terrible. The worst teams, people thought Utah, they thought was going to be right at the bottom, and the Spurs. And the Spurs, I think, are kind of struggling again now, but they started out the year pretty well. And then people like the 76ers and the Warriors, I heard a lot of people thought those might be playing in the finals, and they still might, but right now they're struggling. And so a lot of craziness in the NBA and the standings, and teams that people thought the Pacers were going to be one of the bottom teams, but they have really come around and played really well. And that we lost that tough game to them that we maybe could have won, but they're a legitimate team. They got they're Therese Halliburton and Benedict Mathurin, and then Miles Turner has started playing, and he's a good player. So um, just wanted to say real quick about this. Evan Mobley. A lot of people, Piston fans, don't like players that when people compare, because we're competitive, and when people try to say this player is better than Cade, we're defensive about that. So when people say anything about Jalen Green or Evan Mobley or any of those guys being better than Cade, we kind of look to pick them apart. But I saw a game just a week or so ago. Evan Mobley only scored 4 points and had 3 assists and 3 turnovers. He did have 13 rebounds, but when you're part of his thing is he's playing on this team that's so good, and the guards, Garland and Donovan Mitchell, they shoot the ball a lot and they have the ball in their hands a lot. So I was really encouraged. I thought Evan Mobley would be just an amazing player. Not that I would take him ahead of Cade, but I thought has its potential to be a Hall of Fame type player, even with his skill set. But I thought that I thought he offensively could really expand his game and handle the ball, and he could be a good passer. And that's something again. So Duren, jump to Duren because I just love him. So um, Bogey's up there doing the high pick and roll with Duren, and Duren's rolling to the free throw line, and both players stay on Bogey, and he dumps the ball to Duren, and Duren quickly makes the right read, kicks the ball to the guy open in the corner for a wide open 3. He did that twice against Sacramento, and that Duren is a great passer. We just know that. We've seen little glimpses of it. Right now, he doesn't touch the ball that much. He does get up, catch the ball up high once in a while, and does the handoffs and stuff, and he's pretty good at that. And I just again, I'm optimistic that he has got so much more to his game than we've seen. So just quickly go through, the Clippers game is the irony of the NBA. We couldn't score. The Clippers couldn't score. This game was in both teams scored in the 90s, and just a low scoring game, and we couldn't make any shots. We shot a terrible percentage. Sadiq was 4 for 11 and 2 for 8 on threes. Only had 11 points. Bogey was 10 for 18, which is really good, but he had 2 for 4 on threes, so he had a great game, and he had 26 points. But everybody else kind of struggled. Marvin Bagley still rounding into shape. He struggled shooting. He played 23 minutes. He was 1 for 5. and he did have 8 rebounds, which is big, 2 for 2 from the line. Ivy had 18 points, 5 assists, and 4 rebounds, which sounds like a good game, and it is a good game for a rookie. But when you consider he was 8 for 21 from the floor and 1 for 7 on threes and 1 for 2 from the line, and had 4 turnovers, all of a sudden that turns out to be not such a great productive game. So, if he had made more from the three, and he had shot more free throws and not turned the ball over, those things contribute to really the quality of a game. And sometimes the average fan doesn't even see. They just read what they read in the paper, but they don't see the whole box score and realize what they've done. So he is going to have ups and downs. He's not perfect. He's a rookie, and he's been sensational, and he's just going to keep on getting better. Killian had his only bad game probably in the last stretch of 5 or 6 games. He was 1 for 8 from the floor, 0 for 2 on threes, and he had 3 rebounds and 1 assist. So he's minus 17 plus minus. Duren had a great game. He was 3 for 6 from the floor, 9 rebounds, 4 offensive, and again, those offensive rebounds, they turn into a dunk for him or a kick out to an open shooter usually, and the number of points scored after an offensive rebound, the percentage is really high, and so those are offensive rebounds are priceless for a team to get. So he had also 1 block. He does, there's analytics that show that he does affect the opponent's shots at the rim are affected when he's in the game. The teams shoot a lot lower percentage at the rim than they do when he's not in the game by a significant amount. So he has lots of value. Alec Burks, he struggled this game, and he is probably his only bad game since he's come back. He was 1 for 6 from the floor overall, 0 for 2, was 4 for 4 from the line, and ended up with 6 points. But he's still, again, rounding into shape. I know he was in the game, and he had to come out, even though Coach Casey wanted to play him some more down the stretch. It was in the fourth quarter, but he was gassed, and so he's, you can't replicate NBA conditioning of an NBA game, just when you're in the gym on your own or working out 3-on-3 or whatever they do. So, ironically, the Lakers game the very next night after the Clippers, where both teams barely scored 90. The Lakers game, the final score was Lakers 128, Pistons 121, and so we it's just funny how things go in the NBA, that you can go have such a good high scoring game one night and such a low scoring game another night. Sadiq scored 4 points, 2 for 7, and this is the game where he got hurt. He was 0 for 2 on threes. He stepped on a foot, rolled his ankle, and we hope that this little break in the action makes him come back better with a little more clear head, and he plays. I'm confident he'll probably play better. So Bogey had 20 points and 7 for 15. He was really efficient, 6 for 7 from the line, 6 rebounds, 5 assists. Bagley had a nice game, 5 for 10. He had 11 points and made a 3. He had 3 rebounds. Ivy was 5 for 18, 1 for 9 from the 3, which isn't good, but he was 6 for 8 on free throws. And then he had 4 rebounds and 5 assists and only 1 turnover. So you see the difference. He still shot not the best percentage and he shot his 3 poorly, but maybe he shouldn't have took quite so many threes when he's that cold. But he was 6 for 8 from the line and only had 1 turnover. And so that makes all those other numbers much better. So Killian had just an outstanding game, 18 points, 7 for 14 from the floor overall, 4 for 6 on threes, which is spectacular, 2 rebounds, 4 assists, 0 turnovers. The irony of this is, and I do throw out those plus and minuses sometimes, but I think for one game, they don't always matter. He played 34 minutes, which is a good portion of the game, one of the leaders on the team in minutes played, but he was minus 21, the worst on the team, and he shot so efficiently and didn't turn the ball over. So it's hard to figure sometimes maybe it's just a group of guys you're in with during those minutes that you play. Sometimes there are underlying things that plus minus doesn't reveal, but if you go over and look at players, especially over a large number of games, then plus minus I think is more accurate judge of how you played. So Duren had 12 points, 5 for 7, 8 rebounds, and 3 of them are offensive. So have I said yet that he should play more? Yes, he should. So Burks had 23 points, 6 for 10 from the field, 5 for 8 on threes, 6 for 8 from the free throw line, and he played 24 minutes and he had 23 points, which is just incredible. 3 rebounds, 3 assists, and so he was plus 8, the best on the team by far for the game against the Lakers. So we just are thrilled to have him on the team. He's really going to have a big impact. So then, Sunday we just played the Kings. Kings have won 5 or 6 in a row. They're really rolling. They're one of the highest scoring teams in the NBA. They had 150 some in one game this year. So Kings had 137. Pistons scored 129, which is really high for the Pistons, who have been one of the worst offensive teams in the league. Duren, again, 12 points, 6 for 8. And 5 offensive rebounds, 8 rebounds overall, and he had 1 assist. And so that, just was a spectacular game. And, he's just got to play more. And he did that pass where high pick and roll with Bogey, and Bogey gets it to him on the short roll at the free throw line, and the defense kind of collapses in a little bit. He kicks it to the corner instantly. Twice he did this, and for wide open looks for threes, and one of the times I know they knocked it in, he got the assist. So, again, we had 60% of our starters didn't play, so that's tough, but we got 55 points off the bench, and if you watched earlier episodes, we were getting annihilated off the bench, but with the addition of Burks and more players playing better, and you'll see in this game, we had a lot of players who really stepped up and played great basketball. So 55 points off the bench. We did have 53 or 54 one other game earlier this year, but Bojan had 21 points, 8 for 12 from the floor. That's just impossible. And a lot of those shots, he's so amazing. He gets into the paint, and then he has this little step back fade away, and he just makes it so efficiently. And he's just so calm and effortless when he shoots that. So that was a great game for him. 2 for 5 on threes. And one of the threes, I know the shot clock was running down. He had a bigger player guarding him. He was in the corner. He had nowhere to go with it. And he shot it right. I don't even think he could see the basket, and he nailed it. So great game for him. 3 for 3 from the line, 3 rebounds, 2 assists. Livers had 5 points, 2 for 4 from the floor, and 1 for 3. I have a lot of confidence in Livers. He has struggled and been inconsistent, and I still see really good things out of him. And I sound like a broken record, but he needs to just play. And we're at the point now, especially where we are not likely to possibly play for a playoff spot. We need to find out what we have with each of our players. We need to let them develop and play, and including Isaiah Livers. I'm real pleased with the number of minutes that Coach Casey gives him. Sometimes he gets like 18 minutes. Sometimes he gets like 24 minutes based on how he plays, and I think that that's just the way that it should be. So Bagley had 15 points, 5 for 9, 5 for 5 on free throws, 6 rebounds, 1 big block on Sabonis, which was awesome. He had 5 fouls, and I just, it's interesting. There's a lot of things. He was playing in Sacramento where he was a big disappointment. So he was the second player picked in the draft that year, and after him was Luka, was picked third. He was picked second. Luka was third, and Trae Young was picked fifth, I think, that draft. And so the Sacramento Kings could never forgive him for that. So he struggled. He was scoring like 14 points and 7 rebounds a lot, I think, some of the years, but he never lived up to expectations. His defense never was great, but he just ended up being like kind of a scapegoat for a lot of mediocre teams. They just kept firing their coaches year after year. Their team struggled. They've been the longest team to make the playoffs. They haven't made the playoffs in 15 or 20 years, but he ended up being kind of the whipping boy, and it's very disappointing though. He goes there to play, and they're booing him every chance they get. Every time he touched it, they booed him. first play of the game, Sabonis catches the ball down low, and he just backs into him and just pushes and pounds him. And it should have been an offensive foul, in my opinion, for sure. And they called it on Bagley, and the crowd goes crazy. Then Pistons, I was proud of Coach Casey. He comes down the court. They kind of run a ISO for Bagley, and he kind of is jacked up a little bit, I think, and he shoots it too hard, and the crowd roars. And so things didn't go well. He got 2 quick fouls. He had to come out of the game. And when he went back in, though, he was tough, and he shot well. He, like I said, he blocked Sabonis' shot, and knocked down the free throws, and the crowd is, yelling and screaming and smacking their thunder sticks. And I was proud of him. I really wanted the Pistons. I was mad at those Kings fans for being such a jerk to Bagley. It's great to see after the game. The intel coming out of Sacramento is people liked him, and his teammates all liked him. And you could see that after the game when he was shaking hands, with those guys, that you could tell that they really liked him and had a fondness for him from when they played with him. They said a bad word to say about him, except the fans, and how we can be fanatics. And so anyway, I was pleased for him. It would have been cool if they could have won, so he could have, kind of stuck it to him. But he did play well, especially after the initial part of the game. Ivy had a really great game. He was sensational, 24 points, and he had 8 for 14, 4 for 4 on threes, 4 for 6. He hit those step back threes, and he had 4 rebounds. He had just a great game. Killian didn't have a great game, but he had a really solid game. 9 points, 3 for 9, but he was 2 for 3 on threes and 1 for 1 from the line. So that made, even though 3 for 9 is only 33%, the fact that you make 2 out of 3 threes and 1 for 1 from the line, that means that you had a better night. So Kevin Knox, best game as a Piston. He has a lot of games he doesn't even get to play, and he struggled. To be fair, he struggled early in the year, so he didn't really earn it many minutes. But we were shorthanded, so he was forced to go in there, and he was 4 for 7 and 3 for 5 on threes, which is what we're hoping that he would bring. He got 5 rebounds and 1 assist, which is still good. Burks was tough, 16 points, and he didn't shoot a great percentage from the floor, but he still had 16 points. And again, I really like him. Kojo, if you've heard previous podcasts, I'm not a fan of his. I'm a fan of him as a person. I think he's a really good player, but at his age, when we have young guards, I just want to see the young guards play. And he dribbles a lot. He likes to shoot, but he was on fire. In this time that he played, he was 5 for 10 from the floor and 2 for 3 on threes. And he had 5 assists, which just is a great game. Here again, I love him. And Coach Casey loves him, and Troy Weaver loves him. All of his teammates love him because he's a great person. And here he is. He's been not even getting any minutes, and he steps into that game and plays really, really well. Anyway, I hope that you enjoyed this podcast, and I want to thank my wife Kelly for helping me set things up, and she's done a lot of work for this podcast, and my nephew Nathan that really helped me get going. I want to thank you for listening, and if you listen on YouTube, please subscribe. It's free. Leave a positive sign, and on Spotify, leave a 5-star review if you'd like to. We hope the things turn around for the Pistons, and I know it makes it hard. People like to see your team win, and again, but we do have Duren to watch and Ivy to watch, and see Killian get better. There's a lot of cool things to watch. Burks and Bogey are really good NBA basketball players. If you like just watching good basketball, they're good players, and who knows, we got other players that can develop and stuff. And so I do see a lot of good signs. I would have loved to see all of their players get better and played at the same time. If Casey had the whole roster to set up his rotations from, I think this could be a real good team. We're not going to be a great team, but I just think things with losing Cade and the number of injuries we've had already is going to make it really hard for us ever to get to the rhythm. Again, we've had a tough schedule. The schedule does get easier at the end of towards the end of the year if everybody were back and healthy. Like I said, the trade market, it'll be interesting to see what happens. Again, my opinion is, which is all I give you is my opinion. Everybody has a different one, and if we can get something really worthwhile for Bogey or Burks or Noel, then we should make a trade. But if not, we just keep them and look towards getting better. I still will say this. My prediction is next year, everybody's healthy, comes back. We add a high draft pick. We pick up somebody, even if it's just a really good role player in free agency, but hopefully we pick up something better. Or if we make a trade, we are not that far away, even though when you have the worst record in the league and you've lost 7 games in a row, it doesn't feel like that. But anyway, thank you for listening. Do something good for someone else today to make their life better. And thank you. Go Pistons. Have a great night.